Just finished rereading Stone Ocean. I gotta say, I'm pretty floored. Even though I kind of pride myself in rereading Steel Ball Run very, very regularly, though I haven't read it in almost 6 months now. More than 6 months. But, I used to read it, like, every month. But anyways, Stone Ocean I haven't read since July 2015. And I've always heralded it as the best written JoJo part. And it would probably be my favorite part, if not for my personal experiences with Steel Ball Run. This is probably gonna be my longest video. I don't know how much anyone wants to sit around and listen to me talk about JoJo, but, you know, people have said. So, I'm gonna preface this a little, explaining how I feel about, you know, Stone Ocean and why it's not my favorite, and at the end I'm probably going to have a little blip preluding to what I'm going to say about Steel Ball Run. I'm thinking this video, it's going to be longer than the Vento one, hopefully, because I have quite a bit to say. Quite a bit of non-critical things to say for once, because I'm very critical of everything pre-Part 6. And not to say I don't go into Part 6 and 7 with that same critical lens. Like, not to say I don't go into them with that same critical lens, but the thing is that for me personally, Part 6 and 7 hit a lot of high points in terms of characterization, in terms of artistic integrity, in terms of pacing. Like, it just personally appeals to me. I know I was really harsh in my Vento Arreo review, and I did do that, like, drunk rant on it, but the thing with Vento Arreo is very, very popular, and I get asked very, very regularly, why don't I like it? So I needed that one, like, vent video to eviscerate it. Like, again, Vento Arreo is very popular. I know I got the comments about how it's not that popular in the West, but within my social circle, it's very, very beloved. Like, I don't know what communities you guys are on, but at least on YouTube, Twitter, and Tumblr, like, lots of people love Vento Arreo. As it stands right now, within the roleplay community on Tumblr, like, the characters per part are pretty evenly spaced out. But if there's ever, like, not to say an oversaturation, but, like, definitely at any one given time, most of the RPers are usually from Part 3 and Part 5. And I don't understand people who say that, like, Part 5 has a lot of emotional gravitas and stuff like that. And that's why I came out and, like, not necessarily condemned it, but rather condemned all the things I constantly hear about it. Oh, well, there's my alarm. Thank you. But yeah, so sorry about that. Continuing. I'm sorry I don't cut these or, like, record these with really good quality mic or something. These are just, like, shitty little things I do at the end of, like, live blogging my rereads. Now, Stone Ocean was a fun reread because I spent a lot of it yelling at one of my friends over Skype. Not literally, but, you know, typing to him. So I didn't live blog it as much as I could have, but with him we were having a discussion back and forth, which was exciting. I think I pretty heavily live blogged Stone Ocean, though. Steel Ball Run will be a different type of read-through in terms of, like, for those of you who follow my live blogging, but I'll talk about that at the end. Anyways, I think that your experience with a work can, like, obviously color your experience, like, your opinion of it, sorry. Like, I say this about a lot of things, where, like, one thing is my favorite, but it's not what I think the best is. And I do think Stone Ocean is the best part of JoJo in terms of writing, in terms of characterization, not necessarily in terms of art, but in terms of most things that I look for in JoJo or in any manga. Part 6 is the best. Again, in my opinion, like, none of this is factual because I can't be objective about art. Nobody can. Not like this anyways. But yeah, like, the reason that I say I like Steel Ball Run more is because I have a lot more personal experience with it, in that, like, the struggles the characters go through are more relatable to me personally, and I can more easily get invested in a setting that doesn't try to mirror like my own life. Like, you know, I've lived through 2012, obviously. And that's not to say I don't like stories about like the modern era. Like, I love like fucking Breaking Bad, you know, but because I've lived through 2012, I'm more picky about stuff that takes place in the modern era. Whereas like Steel Ball Run takes place in the past, and like it's easier to connect to, but also distance myself. I don't know how to explain that. I'll try to find a better way to explain it when I get there. But also, like you guys all know, I roleplay Steel Ball Run. I've basically so not rewritten it per se, but like a lot of the plot holes or plot gaps or downtime that was never covered in like the canon material, me and my friends have pretty much filled up. So that like subjective experience makes it my favorite. But in terms of like raw writing and just the raw story, like I think Stone Ocean would actually be my favorite. It's just I've had a better experience. Like another example would be like the best game in my opinion is Spec Ops: The Line, like ever. But my personal favorite game is a Sonic game because I grew up with Sonic, and you know, so my like experiences with that. So it's like me weighing my emotions versus like logically what I like, I guess. Not to say what you like isn't influenced by emotion, but you know. Anyways. So yeah, getting into Stone Ocean. Fucking fantastic. It was like watching a goddamn movie. I got through like the first 12 chapters like maybe like 2 weeks ago, and then I like slogged through them by like in 3 chapter chunks. But then like I sat down today and I just fucking blazed through all of it. I mean, I didn't like skip over stuff. I actually like sat there and read it, but it was really nice to read in color. When I read all of JoJo initially, I did read it in black and white. It was nice to read it in color. God, I don't know where to fucking start. It does start out a little slow, but for the most part, Stone Ocean, in my opinion, has the best pacing in all of JoJo. It's very tight. It's very easy to keep up with. The downtime isn't overexplored. And, like, I was complaining to Gabe, who is my hot pants and my Anasui. I was complaining to Gabe about how I wish there was more downtime. Even though there was, like, so much downtime in part 5 and I couldn't fucking stand it. And the reason for that is that Stone Ocean is very good at building very strong, emotionally resonant characters who, like, you can understand off the bat. Like, for example, like, when Foo Fighter shows up, like, once she gets, like, a couple lines outside of the battle dialogue, you just know who she is. Or, like, when Poochie showed up, that first, 2 pages he was on. Not first 2, like, the first 4 pages he was on. Those, like, defined him as a human being. And we knew, like, in a split second who this guy is. When Hermes showed up, we knew who she was. The only characters we didn't really have with were Weather and Anasui, and that was, like, very intentional. Whereas, like, I don't feel that as much in other parts. Like, some parts, you know, you do, but, like, in some parts, you don't. Like, I won't say, like, oh, we didn't know who Jotaro was after, like, being with him for, like, a little bit. But, like, we had a solid understanding of him. But, like, Polnareff and Kakuin's characters are just kind of all over the place, and then Araki eventually settles into a rhythm, and that happens with other characters, too. And granted, you could say this is character development, but I think having a strong backbone of who your character is from the beginning is very important. Because, like, Jolene, she changes so much over the course of Stone Ocean. She grows up. But within the first few pages, we know exactly what type of a human being she is. We don't have these strong establishing character moments in most of the parts, like with the finesse that I think Stone Ocean has. Like, yeah, I kinda understand. I don't want to like rag on Vento Arreo in my Stone Ocean review, but like Stone Ocean is just like, sometimes it feels like the antithesis of like Vento with how good it is at writing. But anyways, like, I don't know, like, I like Giorno. You guys heard me talk about how much I like him for, like, 12 minutes. Like, I love him. And yeah, like, we know he's, like, a thief and he's kind of a crafty kid in the beginning, but, like, with Jolene, we understand, like, what goes into her character, why she is the way she is within, like, the first 2 or 3 chapters, whereas with Giorno, it's, like, gradual. It's really gradual. And I know that with Giorno, I, like, talked about how he's this subtle character, and that's okay. But when all of your fucking characters are incomprehensible, that's not character development, that's not having strong establishing moments. And, like, again, in Stone Ocean, we have that with pretty much every character. Now, Stone Ocean is definitely the part that coasts off the goodwill of prior parts the most, in that some of the stuff is kind of hard to buy into, or straight up cannot be followed or understood without reading other parts. Like, I know a lot of people think it's elitist or obnoxious to be like, hey, don't skip parts, but with Stone Ocean, you actually cannot follow through with. I mean, you can, vaguely, if you know Dio's a bad guy, but, like, none of Jotaro's character development, none of Jolene's existence is enjoyable without knowing what happened before. Very little of what Pucci is doing is understandable, relatable, or sympathetic without knowing the kind of guy Dio was before. Well, not very little, because he's written as sympathetic in there. It's more of a, like, you get him better. Like, things click, so don't skip parts. Please don't skip parts. I mean, if I had even sat down to... It would take, like, what, 6 hours to read Stone Ocean for me. Maybe. 6-7 hours. I was reading pretty slowly. Like, I was live blogging, I was talking to people. Like, if you sit down and put your head to it, it's 6 hours. Like, you can read it for 1 hour every day of the week, and then be done in less than a week. It's, like... JoJo's daunting because it's long. It's not really. Anyways, getting back to the story now. We all know Stone Ocean follows Jolene Cujo, who has been sent to prison for a crime she did not commit. And then it follows her sort of adventures in the prison as she runs into stand users after having first contact with her father in God knows how long. And eventually we come to learn that Pucci, the priest within the prison, he worked with Dio. He knew him, and now he's trying to make Dio's plans of achieving heaven or creating a new world a reality. So, you know, it's kind of like, oh, this is Jotaro's dirty laundry, and this is Dio's dirty laundry, and they've been put in the same basket. And, like, when I went into reading Stone Ocean at first, I knew about that. I knew Pucci worked with Dio, and I knew Jolene was Jotaro's daughter. I was like, grown. And then when Jotaro, like I was thinking it was gonna either be like some sort of revenge story, because I knew she was fighting for Jotaro, or I just thought it was gonna be like, I am morally obligated to kick your ass because my dad kicked your mentor friend God's ass. It wasn't like that, and I appreciated that. And a YouTuber, I'm so sorry, I don't remember your name right now, your username. But when I criticized Stone Ocean a bit, when I criticized Araki's writing of women, and they talked about how Araki's writing of Jolene is and writing of Jotaro is deconstructive of, like, the male power fantasy that was built up in part 3. Now, I wouldn't go in so far as to say that, like, Jotaro was necessarily a power fantasy, because I don't, like, I cannot, and maybe this is just me personally, but, like, Jotaro is not the kind of guy you want to be, because he's fawned over by girls and stuff, but he's, like, not social, and this isn't, like, a case of him being, like, one of those light novel protags who, like, brushes every girl away, but it's more of a case of, like, he has genuine trauma and, like, awkwardness, and that even shows in part 3. So I wouldn't say he's a power fantasy, but he is definitely, like, not a power fantasy, but he is, like, a stronghold of, like, manhood and, you know, all that. And not, like, toxic masculinity, thank God. Jotaro's always been kind of, like, he's always, like, erred away from that. All the guys in JoJo have, thanks to JoJo's, like, heavy queer coding. But, like, it sort of tore into how Jotaro, and in a sense, all the men in JoJo have been built up. And I think this gets further cemented later down the line with Johnny, who's, like, incredibly sensitive. And that's not to say prior characters aren't sensitive, but they're only allowed to be sensitive in jokey moments, like Josuke is when he cries, or they're only allowed to be sensitive during points where it's supposed to humanize them, like Jonathan is when he's around Erina, or when it's to show how much of a gentle, giant, good man he is, or whatever. Like, these are the only times we get to see quote-unquote feminine features out of the, or quote-unquote, passive features in these characters. And, like, Johnny gets ragged on, like, so much for being weak and crying a lot. But I think Johnny is really, like, supplemented by Jolene and then right back, because it's like, oh, well, Jolene is a strong girl and Johnny is, I wouldn't say he's a weak boy, but he's an expressive boy. That being said, that's not to say, like, Jolene doesn't cry a lot. Like, I remember, like, within the first 50 chapters, she had cried, like, 3 fucking times. And that's totally understandable. One of the things she cried over bugged me, but I'm going to get to that later when I talk about JoJo's chauvinistic mindset. And that's funny, because I'm talking about how Jolene is a well-written female character. She is, but at the same time, she isn't. In that, like, you can be a well-written woman, but you can still have problems with you. And a lot of those problems just arise from the mindset that JoJo takes. Anyways, usually you get stories about, like, men trying to save their mothers or their wives or whatever, and we got that in part 3. We got Jotaro trying to save Holly. It was a good story, but it's like, this time around, now it's Jotaro who's in a coma, and Jolene who has to save him, which is a direct parallel. And it's like, Jotaro was built up in part 3, and then later part 4 as being this, like, smart, strong guy. The world is literally, or not the world, Star Platinum, the world is almost literally said within, like, it's almost main text that it's like, oh, well, this is the best stand. I disagree, White Snake is the best stand. I wish I had that stand. But, of all of them. But, I digress. Like, he's powerful. And he might not be a power fantasy, but he is still a pillar of what, like, JoJo is supposed to represent. And not to say Jolene deconstructs that pillar. That's what Johnny does. But Jolene goes and says, hey, let's look at this in a different light, Or, like, she also says, like, maybe, just maybe, it's not Jotaro alone who is this pillar, but rather the spirit of what it is to be a JoJo. And I think, more than any other character, Jolene represents that, like, what it means to be a JoJo. Because, that JoJo identity didn't really exist until Jotaro. And, even in, like, Giorno kind of represents it with this whole, like, noble thing. And I want to say, like, again, Johnny kind of fucking eviscerates it, because he's, like, super selfish through to the end. But, like, Jolene, she's just this very broken girl at her core. And yeah, I have problems with the whole, my dad left and suddenly I'm so much more damaged than any person whose dad left would reasonably be, but whatever. But, like, it leads to some good character growth. Like, it's not realistic. I can't believe somebody would act like that. I have friends whose fathers left when they were babies, who left when they were children, etc., and then tried to come back in their lives later, and none of them, like, acted like Jolene. And that isn't to say everybody reacts the same, but Jolene's is just so unbelievably over the top, and that's where my problem comes in, where it's like, oh, like, that one line that's like, a woman without a father is an incomplete person and seeks other people. Like, I know with, like, daddy issues, quote unquote, like, yeah, that drives some girls to go and, seek out, like, to be promiscuous. But Jolene isn't, like, promiscuous, but, to seek out that love in other, but that's not in guys, like, they date and stuff, but that's not, like, a clear-cut thing. It felt very Freudian. That's my problem. The way Jolene's relationship with her father is in, like, the early part is treated as very fucking Freudian. But yeah, at the same time, like, I'll put my social justice at the door and read this story with my clenched teeth, Like, alright, I'll believe it. She's bitter about her dad leaving. Because, hey, some people just fucking are. And yeah, she sought out that love in somebody else. And then she did something massive for him. She went to prison for him. I will believe it. Because you know what? As overdone as that is. Because that's the thing. It's overdone. And JoJo usually does not fall into cliches. as overdone as it is, and I mean like really overdone, I mean like fucking thousands of years old overdone. I do not mean like, oh, JoJo is old and I am not recognizing that it was a pioneer of these tropes. No. As overdone as it is, I'll buy into it, because I know Araki will make it enjoyable somehow. And he does, because Jolene mends her relationship with her father, and she does it pretty quickly, because she's a reasonable and logical and smart person. And, I really appreciate how smart she is. I appreciate how smart everybody is in Stone Ocean. I appreciate how smart Stone Ocean is, because, yeah, JoJo's always been full of pseudoscience, but, like, there is a particular line you can follow in Stone Ocean, and, like, a lot of the enjoyment of reading the stand battles this time around isn't what wacky thing is going to happen next, but it's like, I'm guessing this thing is going to happen next because there's so much logic applied to so many of these stands this time around. And then when you're right, you feel like this incredible glee. And when you're wrong, you're like, whoa, so they did it like that? I mean, yeah, there are still asspulls. It's fucking JoJo. But they're not as bad as they were in other parts, and I really appreciate that. I think Part 5 also had that, especially later on. And this, like, tactical stand battling. I wish Araki had, like, followed through with it more into Steel Ball Run, because he doesn't really do it. It's definitely the most enjoyable, like, battle watching reading of the battles or whatever that I've had. But yeah, Jolene spends a little time in prison, and then she she makes her friends and her allies, and Jotaro's memories are taken by Pucci, who is a stand, white snake, which can take your, like, these discs from your head, and I'm sure everyone who's listening to this is read Stone Ocean, so, like, I shouldn't have to explain it, but, yeah, he takes Jotaro's discs, Star Platinum's retrieved, and then Jotaro is in his coma. And then Jolene just does her thing, and it's fucking great. I want to say pretty much everything after Guess was really good, because Guess was, like, yeah, she was funny, but she was boring. But the story, like, really, really picked up. Like, what was his name? Jungly? That battle was really enjoyable, and after Jotaro gets conked out, that's, like, the best. Or no, I want to say after Foo Fighters joins. I don't remember if the suicidal guy was before or after Foo Fighters. I think he was before. That was really enjoyable too, because that's when Hermes got her stand. And Hermes is my favorite character in Stone Ocean, and I want to say she's like my JoJo wife, other than some Steel Ball Run characters, because I love the Steel Ball Run girls. But like, Hermes, she's top tier. She's got this. All the girls in this part, like, obviously there's trashy background girls, but most of the main girls are just so fucking gorgeous. Like, Jolene is lovely. I really have to commend Araki on his, like, great character designs. He has this problem where, like, usually he starts the part drawing it in the art style of the previous part, and then as he settles into the character designs, he settles into a new art style. So, like, even though I do think mid-part 7 is way better art than part 6, I still think part 6's art holds together so strongly, especially in those, like, mid to later chapters, because of how good the character designs are. Like, they're all so gorgeous. Now, in the actual comic, they're not as much, but in the, like, in-between drawings, like, the in-between chapter drawings, and the covers, especially, there's this one of Jolene with just, like, all these handcuffs around her, like, upper body, around her torso, and she's, like, laying there, and that is, like, one of the most beautiful pictures of her. I like that picture more than I like any of the Gucci pictures he did. Like, she's just so beautiful. I love her colors. I love all the colors. Now, I know it's the color team, but, like, I love all the greens and the blues. Feels very natural. Anyways, Hermes has this, like, gorgeous character design. A lot of the characters in this story are very revenge/other person driven, and that's understandable. That might not be relatable for a lot of people, because a lot of people don't need to get revenge. Like, most readers don't need to go get revenge, but we can all understand that desire to fight for someone else. And in that, the characters become relatable. Especially that the characters kind of just fall into camaraderie. And, like, this is where I think Stone Ocean succeeds, where, like, Vento really failed. Where, like, Vento never sold me on these characters' relationships, probably because it took place over the course of, like, 2 weeks. Whereas Stone Ocean canonically takes place over the course of, like, months. Because, yes, like, we don't see those months, but there is a time skip. And there are time skips, and some of them are pretty extensive, and it's like, yeah, of course people get close together when they're in an enclosed space together, like prison. Like, what really sold me on the friendships more than anything was when Foo Fighters gets caught by Poochie, and then it's talking about, like, the dialogue is talking about, not the dialogue, the narration is like, she doesn't want to lose her intellect. And then it said, like, she remembers Jolene making fun of the shape of her toes. And, like, that part kills me when I read it. Like, that's so emotionally impactful. Like, I can feel their friendship just off of that tiny little scribble in the corner. That let me know that these people are friends. And not just that these people are friends, but that they've settled into a routine and they're a regular part of each other's lives. Because, like, yeah, obviously there's internet friendships, and I'm not going to condemn them. A lot of, if not, like, most of my current active friendships are over the internet, because I'm a bit isolated right now. But, like, a lot of friendships also just come from you guys kind of existing in the same place and coincidentally running into the same shit together. And that's relatable. Like, there's this very, like, tangible, real thing I can grab onto that's going on between Hermes, Jolene, and Fu. And, like, with Anasui, like, falling in love with Jolene, yeah, that's unrealistic, but he's fucking nuts. And, like, Weather and Anasui having whatever relationship they do makes sense because they've been together for so long. Likewise with Emporio's, like, caring for them. And Emporio's a kid, so he's gonna, like, you know, he's gonna latch on to whatever he can get. But yeah, like, it's just, it's so good. It feels so honest and real and emotional. I've probably said that, like, 100 times. Anyways, continuing on. Love the, like, stand battle to stand battle, because, like, because that's what JoJo is. It's, like, moments in between stand battles, and that's pretty much it. Like, I love all the explanation of the story. I love the tiny character moments we get, instead of these, like, long, drawn-out, too emotional flashbacks. We do get those. We get those, like, in all of JoJo, but, like, they're just not as, gaudy as they were previously. I love the tact in, like, not showing all of Poochie's backstory at once. And I like that they showed the later flashbacks first, and then the earlier flashbacks later. That really, like, I want to say that, like, really gave me a lot of intrigue. Like, I saw Dio in his backstory. Like, I mean, of course I knew, but that first time when I was watching, or reading, it was like, I saw Dio, and I was like, wait, how does this guy know Dio? And then when I finally got to the part where, like, we found out, I was like, whoa. Also, I gotta say, I fucking love Dio in Stone Ocean. Like, all of his philosophy and stuff, all of his speaking about, like, his, I'm going through my own live blog so I can, like, see what I was saying. But yeah, like, all of Dio's dialogue, like, it made him seem like this smart, I don't want to say grounded or worldly, because he's not, but it's, like, very... It takes him from being this dumbass supervillain concept of evil and, like, makes him a real person with, like, goals and feelings. And it's just, it was so much, you know? It was so much. A lot of the dialogue was really funny, too. Like, I'm reading this little panel with Hermes, and she's like, we just got $200. If we add out winnings, we're gonna get $1,200 total. And she's all, like, excited. And then, like, Weather Report, like, you want to piss? Just piss in the air. Like, those were funny without taking a breather moment. Like, so many moments in, I want to say Battle Tendency and then Stardust Crusade. Yeah, like, Part 4 doesn't do this as much. Part 4 does the humor integration a little better. But, like, Part 2, 3, and 5 really do this thing where, like, they have to, like, pause the, like, actual story to have some humorous moments. Whereas Part 6 does that so much less than, like, all the parts. I gotta say the setting, before I continue on, like, the other stuff, the setting in Stone Ocean is great. I have a real sense of space. Like, I think the best world building / setting building is in Part 4, because Morayo also feels like a real place, and, like, part of the charm of Part 4 is Morayo in of itself. And I wouldn't say, like, a bulk of Stone Ocean's charm is its setting. But, like, having this really real, fleshed out setting really, like, it makes it feel lived in. It makes it feel like a real place. Now this kind of falls flat as like they move out of the prison, but while they're in the prison, it's like, whoa. And I'm not saying it has to be, like, I'm not gonna rag on Vento for it being a traveling journey, or rag on part 3 for being a traveling journey. But like having some solid sense of space really like attaches you and grounds you to the characters. You know, like I've said, like part 7's my favorite part and it doesn't have one solid space. Shit, there are frogs on my $800 pants. Stands in this part are my favorite, in terms of raw design. I think Foo Fighters is cool. I think Whitesnake is hot. I think Stone Free was really hot. Jolene stand. Diver Down was cool as shit. Foo Fighters was obviously a cool stand. Whitesnake was, Stone Free was. I loved seeing how she used Stone Free. That was like so classic. Kiss was a cool stand. Kiss was like so cool. Like every time Hermes was about to have a battle, I was like, how's she gonna utilize this? Oh my god, she's so clever. Of course, that's like the main characters. But even like all the little stands were like cool. Like Versace's Underworld was like, just conceptually, so many of the stands were so fucking cool. This part was really gory. Like, not to say previous parts weren't, but this part was, like, really, really gory, and that doesn't make me sick or anything. It was kind of exciting. The thing is, the gore didn't feel excessive. Like, it felt, because this was such a mature story, it didn't feel out of place. The sexuality did at points, but again, I'll touch on that later. Like, just, I had a great time with it, and I know I've just been rambling about how much of a great time I've had with it. Right, okay, I was trying to find this panel. This is Dio talking to Poochie. He had just grabbed Poochie's wrist and been like, oh, you can kill me with your stand. You can take my stand in my sleep. And then he says, you know, Poochie's like looking at his wrist, and Dio's all, I've insulted you, I apologize. I never thought that I would meet someone who could put me at ease just by talking. I was afraid of losing you. I'm sure you'll become an honorable child of God. Like, that shows Dio has fears aside from stupid petty ones, or, like, you know, petty villain fears, like dying. Like, that shows he has these, like, he also has a need to be understood and have affection and things like that. Now, I'm not Camp Dio Poochie, that's fucking gross. 100-year-old man, a 16-year-old boy. But, like, I am very invested in their relationship. Like, obviously, Poochie values him as God because he showed him a path when he was at his darkest hour, and Dio is naturally just charismatic like that. But, like, the fact that Dio found comfort in Poochie, that's just so groundbreaking, you know? And it's like, when I went back and reread parts 1 and 3, that really, like, shifted my perception of him. It just spoke so much to who he is as a person. Like, I'm scared of being alone, but I also push people away because I'm scared of them hurting me. I'm sure everybody's felt that at some point. It's like somehow Dio Brando, the guy built up as the big, big bad, is relatable. And people who are unwilling to sit down and say, like, oh, this aspect of a villain is relatable because he's a bad guy and how can bad guys be relatable? Like, shut up. Shut up. Like, you know, most villains don't see themselves as the bad guy. And that's a huge theme for Poochie, that, like, oh, you're evil, but you don't recognize you're evil, and, like, you know, that's been said to him, like, several times, and that makes you the worst kind of evil. Now, I wouldn't say Poochie's evil, but, you know, like, you know, this thematic draw line, like, I love that. It's like, of course you don't see yourself as evil, and this theme runs through with the next arc's villain, who is Valentine, who, it's like, unlike, like, with Jolene and Johnny, they're, like, very opposing characters, and that builds onto each other, and then Valentine and Poochie being incredibly similar also builds onto their characters, because, like, yeah, people read Stone Ocean and be like, holy shit, Poochie, but then you read Part 7 and you're like, never mind, he's not as extreme. Shockingly so. I'm still going through my live blog thing. God, I got so excited when Dio's kids showed up. That's because one of my really good friends plays, Donatello Versace, and so, like, I feel this kinship, this love for him. Like, Poochie's flashback from when he was a kid. Poochie's entire, like, backstory is so fucked up. Like, he was just trying to stop his brother and sister from being involved in a romantic relationship, and he was doing what he thought was right, and he fucked up so badly. And, like, so it's like, oh, well, shit, you know? And then he, like, goes and takes his brother's disc, because at that point, like, I don't want to say, like, oh, he was corrupted by Dio, because I do think Pucci did things of his own volition. At the same time, I don't think he would have gone out and, you know, like, obviously he wouldn't have a stand if he never met Dio, but, like, he wouldn't have gone out and tried to hurt Weather, per se, after Perla had died. And maybe he would have, like, you know what, I'm actually pretty unsure on this too, but, like, you know, he wouldn't have been as tactical about it. He's a grief-struck brother. He loves Perla. Like, it's very canon. Like, she loves him so much that she can confide in him about her boyfriend. And, like, you know, canonically, they're from a rich and prominent family. So, like, she probably isn't allowed to have one. And, like, just, like that little bit that she told him she has a boyfriend, that speaks to their characters. That, like, oh, they're close. They kept secrets, you know? They're not twins, holy shit. That's a Weather and Pucci. It's just, like, it's like, yes, it's a little ridiculous. Just like, Jolene, you know, hating her father so strongly is ridiculous. But it's like, at the same time, these are very real things that do drive people off the edge. And maybe Pucci was a little unhinged to begin with. He's somebody who tries to find sanctity and purpose in anything he can. And that just so happens to be God. And then it's like, when God goes and lets him down, what's he supposed to do? Like, would God allow such a cruel thing to happen to such a good woman? You know, and he asks that. When he sees his sister dead, he asks, why? Why did things turn out this way? When we were infants, why did that woman take my younger brother and not me? Why wasn't it me? Why did I listen to that woman's confession? Why did I want to become a priest? Why do two people meet? Like, him asking why, that hurts. You can, like, obviously I'm reading it, like, very matter-of-factly, but when I was reading it, you know, in my head, it's like, I imagine him being super shaky about it. Like, obviously he sees his sister's dead body, but, like, he's blaming himself. And yeah, like, I'm not gonna be one of those, ooh, Pucci blames himself so pure, like, that's just a joke. If you ever hear me calling Pucci pure, it's a joke. Or, like, innocent or whatever. I do think a lot of his wrongdoings come of his own volition. But it's like, at the same time, like, you know, if things didn't turn out this way, he wouldn't turn out this way. And that's kind of the scary thing about Stone Ocean. Like, a lot of people herald Steel Ball Run as being the super morally gray part. And the thing is, like, you don't hear people say that about Stone Ocean as much, probably because of the presence of prior characters, such as Jotaro, or, you know, the Speedwagon Foundation, or Dio. That, like, there's already an established absolute good and bad, and that Valentine is a completely foreign presence, and this new version of Jonathan Joestar is relatively foreign as well, you know? So, like, that's why we can't say that one is the definite good or evil. But I would say the same thing about Stone Ocean. I mean, what would have had to change in Pucci or Jolene's life for either of them to end up like the other? Granted, I don't think a Joestar will end up just like a Brando follower by the nature of JoJo's Bizarre Adventures. But at the same time, it's like, it really didn't need to be this way. For any of them. For Hermes, you know, it didn't need to be that way. Her sister didn't have to, like, die. It's just coincidence. And that's, again, that's another theme. Like, why do two people meet? Why do specific things happen? Like, you know, it just was by chance that Foo Fighters gained memories, and she gained knowledge, and that she learned to love and care about these people. It was just by chance that this fucking psychopath Anna Sui happened to, like, fall in love with, you know, Jolene, and then fight so hard for her. Like, again, all of Stone Ocean's, like, big coincidences and karma and everything just accumulating into one very tight-knit, very smart story. A lot of the shot compositions, I'm going to talk about the art for a bit, a lot of the shot compositions, a lot of the panel compositions are, like, so fucking cinematic. Like, I wonder if Araki watched a lot of American movies before doing Stone Ocean, because Stone Ocean takes place in America. Because I know he talks about how he wanted Valentine to be, like, the type of villain he is, because he watched Independence Day. So I'm like, I wonder if, like, he watched a lot and consumed a lot of American media for Stone Ocean. Maybe that, like, inspired him to go in and do Steel Ball Run the way he did. But, like, I wouldn't be surprised, because the way he draws a lot of, especially the big scenes, seems like a panning shot I'd see in a fucking movie, which I thought was beautiful. While I wouldn't want to see other characters in the Stone Ocean art style, the characters of Stone Ocean look fucking gorgeous. Perla was beautiful. Hermes, like I said, waifu tier. Foo Fighters, probably one of the cutest adult characters. Poochie is beautiful. He's so beautiful. Jotaro looks bad. Dio looks really good. Jotaro looks bad. He looks like 14. On that note, I really like Jolene's 14-year-old design. I love the character designs. Again, I love the blues and the pinks. I kind of, like, this is very particular, but I like how Anasui is, like, bright pink, and so he, like, stands out against all the blues and greens. And I know this is JoJo's coloring team again, but, like, just the, like, earthy, like, again, the blues, the greens, the browns, they add this, like, the grays. They add this, like, grounded realness, which is, like, exactly what I need in a story like Stone Ocean, which is a lot closer to me than the other parts are, because, you know, part 5 is about the Mafia, part 4 is about, and, like, maybe, like, for Japanese people, like, part 5, or part 4 is more relatable, but still, it's, like, 90s. Like, Stone Ocean is something that, like, most current JoJo fans can relate to in a sense of, like, oh, well, a lot of us have been to, like, big American city, like, I mean, like, Western audiences, of course, that we've been to, like, major cities, and in 2012. I mean, yeah, not all of us have been to prison. Most of us probably haven't been to prison. But, still, like, you know, you see enough fucking prison dramas and talk of prison. It's like, I think he really understands American prison culture. Like, I really appreciate, I at least feel like he's done, like, a lot of research to make that prison feel so real. I mean, yeah, the guards act really stupidly over the top, and, like, a lot of the inmates do too, but, like, the, like, money system they have going, or, like, just some of the casual banter between inmates we see in the background, or that, like, again, very particular, but, like, I became very fond of the lunch lady as a character, because of that, like, one line, like, salmon is the opposite of pork, and it's like, you know, you always, like, in prison dramas, a lot of the times, the lunch lady is always, like, quite a character, so it's like, it felt so, it felt researched, and parts felt like an homage to something I haven't watched, because I haven't watched a lot of old-timey prison, like, I obviously have watched Orange is the New Black, but while JoJo Part 6 was going, Orange is the New Black obviously wasn't out. The book might have been, so, like, maybe he read that, but it just feels like it draws so much from, like, American TV and stuff. I really, really enjoyed it. You can, like, feel his influences. That's back to the story. So I talked about, like, the beginning part. When the story, like, really kicks into gear, like, we find out Poochie's plans. It just moves along so fast, but not, like, too fast. It's not, like, grossly fast. It's, like, it's fast in a good way. Like, I need to get to the next page. I need to find out what happens next. It's like a desperation sort of thing. Now, JoJo has a tendency to do filler battles, but I didn't mind the filler battles, and there weren't a lot. Again, the filler battles were mostly in the beginning to establish, like, Jolene's powers or Hermes's powers, and I didn't mind them because the tactics were pretty easy to follow, and they were pretty logical, and there weren't a lot of ass pulls. And so we, like, learned about their powers with them, and that really made me feel like we were growing with them. I like the Fight Club part. I watched this, like, Fight Club analysis video yesterday, and then while I was reading, I was like, haha, Kosuva farts just like Fight Club, and then they literally said, this is a Fight Club. So that was great. I really hope he watched Fight Club before he made that. I don't know if Fight Club had been out when he was, like, writing that part of Stone Ocean. I think it was. Anyways, but, like, a lot of the battles felt like they had more purpose than they usually did. Like, in another part, I feel like, say, the Ungolo portion would have really felt like filler. But no, because Ungolo's one of Dio's kids. So it's like, you know, he leads us into Raquel and Versace. And you could argue that, like, Dio having these kids and us having to see them is, like, filler. But it's like, first of all, it was, like, teasing at Giorno showing up, which never happened. Which I would have actually really enjoyed. I did feel let down that he didn't show up. But, you know, I'll live. Like, oh man, I've been going for 45 minutes. I haven't even started talking about character. But yeah, that, like, after the Fight Club portion, pretty much, it's just one thing after another. It's super fast. And I love it. And that's what makes the death so impactful. Like, when I think about Abdul's death in part 3, I'm like, whoa. Because, like, it wasn't some big set piece. It wasn't like Kakyoin or Iggy's where, like, they made a big deal out of it. Like, or Abachio's. Like, Norancia's death hit hard. Because he just fucking died. Like, they didn't, like, make this big crescendo surrounding it or whatever. Like, he just died, which is what happens. People die. They just do. And yeah, like, we got to see, like, Foo Fighters ascending to heaven. But that was sort of to show, like, oh, well, I had no intellect, but now I do, and it just tied into her arc, and it, like, cemented, like, the character she became, because, you know, she had nothing. It's like, but, like, Weather Report's death hits me so hard every time, because he didn't have any big dramatic last words. Yeah, he had a big dramatic last thing he did, but he didn't have any big dramatic last words to say. He didn't have a big speech or anything like that. And, like, when I was reading it, and he was dead, I was like, wait, that's it? Wait, I remember him dying later and having a big speech, but apparently he didn't. Or, like, not having a big speech, but saying more than that. And then, like, that's how everyone dies. They just go out, you know, like a flame, and it's sad. And the ending of part 6 is sad, and that's why a lot of people don't like it. And I'm not one of those all-true artist tragedy people, even though I said what I think the best game is and the best JoJo part are, like, the most tragic, but whatever. Like, I'm not one of those people, because there's a lot of, like, happy things that I think are art, a lot of humor-based things that I think are very artful. Stone Ocean, like, made me feel emotion to, like, such an extent that it's like, oh, like, if I think a piece of media is, like, if I really, like, say, like, oh, this is high art, then I'm saying, like, this made me feel something very strongly. Stone Ocean moved me, this reread, moved me to tears, almost tears. I didn't cry. I don't generally cry on the second read or watch of anything, but I almost started crying about 4 times. 2 of those times because of Poochie. I love him so much. Best boy. Love his character design. He's so attractive. But yeah, it just ends on this, like, very somber note. But then there's still just that dredge of hope that this New World Jolene is happy. I mean, she has a boyfriend, and she's having a good time on the road with her boyfriend and her girlfriend, and, like, you know, we're happy for her. Hope that Foo Fighters is in the new universe. I'll figure that out when I read JoJolion, because I'm, like, super behind on it. I know Irene showed up, and Irene is new Jolene. I hope Emporio is okay, I really do. I also hope JoJolion does not rely on the Dio formula again, because fuck, I'm so done with Dio. Diego was, like, peak Dio. Like, that was the highest form he could reach. Any Dio from there will disappoint. Any Dio spawn from there will disappoint. But yeah, I'm gonna talk about the characters in brief. I don't want this to go over an hour, but it might. Who's gonna listen to this for an hour, but whatever. And I've been super all over the place. Like, usually I'm pretty organized with these. But that's the thing, Stone Ocean has made me feel so intensely that I have trouble not being all over the place. Because, like, when I consume a piece of media that's really emotional, I need time to parse the information. Now, with the other parts, the thing is that they didn't make me feel this strongly. And that's why I didn't get as rambly during those parts. Like, I dislike part 5 so much, and that's why I have rambly things about it. But, like, that's why I have that, like, vent about it. But, like, when I'm talking about it from, like, an analytical or critical perspective, like, without, you know, with some respect to my criticism, again, not, like, a drunk rant, it's like, yeah, I can be more structured, because it's easy, but, like, with Stone Ocean, every time I say one thing, I remember, like, 5 things that I got emotional about. It's like, oh my god, this is fucking great. But yeah, Jolene, very strong character. Love her. I love how much she grows. She really, like, becomes mature over the course of Stone Ocean, and in, like, a very realistic way. Like, she's kind of a brat at the beginning, honestly. And then she grows up. And it's like, you can really feel the passage of time on her. Hermes is not as dynamic a character as Jolene. She's very flat and static. She doesn't need to be dynamic. She's a great character in of herself. Not to say she doesn't have more growing to do, every human being does, but it's like, nothing in the story would really change her because of all the strife she's seen prior. She's a great character. Probably had my favorite dialogue. Again, she's super hot. Love her stand. Best stand in this part, probably. That and Whitesnake. Foo Fighters, super emotional character. I'm moved to tears right now thinking about her. Loved this, like, concept of this fucking plankton just wanting a life. Just wanting to, like, have memories. Wanting to smile. That's so much, because it's like, imagine that, like, you have no identity, and then suddenly you do. Who are you without your memories? Again, another thematic drawline of this part. I love Wes. He deserved better. He deserved a lot better. Anasui was a fun character. I can't go and say I loved him, because a lot of the time he was on screen I felt like kicking him. But I enjoyed him. Jotaro in this part was very sad dad who can't do much. That was fun. It was fun seeing him take the Last of Us Joel route. It was fun seeing him be Booker DeWitt, but instead of being Joel and Booker in action, he was Joel and Booker with a big leg injury. He was Joel during that part where Ellie had to take care of him. That was pretty fun. Or he was like Booker during the DLCs, if I'm remembering the DLCs right. No, I'm not. But it was fun seeing him be sad, incapacitated video game dad. It was fun seeing him be torn into a little when he's been built up so much. I don't have so much of a problem as him being built up during part 3 as I do him being built up in part 4. This is probably Jotaro's worst design though, and I've mostly been talking about the great designs. Dio, like, all the problems I had with Dio in part 3 are, like, fixed in part 6. Poochie is my second favorite villain, and I want to say he's the second best villain too. I actually do think Valentine has better writing surrounding him, and I'll talk about that later, like in my Steel Ball Run video, parenthesis S, close parentheses. But like, I enjoyed it. It was a very close tie. Beautiful design. His motivations, while not necessarily, like, directly relatable, were understandable. He was sympathetic without being grating. Like, the whole, ooh, this character, he's just a wooby and he's not bad. Like, no, Poochie was shown as being bad, but he wasn't shown as being stupidly bad like Dio was portrayed as, like, it was inevitable. He was given a lot more nuance than Dio, while, like, never straying away from being a villain, like Valentine does in so many parts. I really like that balance. And he was comprehensible, unlike Cars, and he wasn't entirely irredeemable like Kira, and he wasn't super far gone like Kira or Diavolo were. So that's why I love him so much. Not to say I dislike any of those other characters. I love literally all the major villains in JoJo. I think they're all very well written. If anything, Araki's, like, best writing comes out in his villains. Fucking love them. Emporio! Oh my god, I haven't even talked about Emporio. There's not much for me to say. I mean, he's just a kid. How much identity do kids have? I guess that could also tie into the themes of identity and memories and who we are and why things happen. Like, why did he have to be born in this prison? Why didn't he get out? How much of a person is he when this is all he's ever known? Poor kid. The kid is like, he's a plot device, but there's, like, a character made out of that plot device, and I think that's really cool. Like, when he first showed up, I was like, oh, this kid telling them what to do, but then, like, he kills Poochie, and, like, on my first read, I was like, oh, well, plot device character with some emotional gravitas. It's like, no, he's so much more. The writing of him is almost kind of, like, meta. Like, it's almost meta. It's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm going into this, like, super aware that he's a plot device, and I'm gonna make his character center around the fact that he is, that, like, all of his being centers around him being a plot device, and that is going to draw very specific emotions out of this child, and that's gonna hurt. It's gonna show, like, the impact of what happens when you do not have strong influence until a critical moment happens in the series, and that's what Emporio has to suffer with, that, like, oh, he gives a bunch of information and does a bunch of cool things, but, like, ultimately, those cool things were only in service of the plot, not in service of establishing his character, and at the end, he is broken. This isn't me ragging on Emporio, but, like, I just thought Araki's writing of him was, like, super smart. Like, I think he went into it being like, yeah, plot device. But that's going to be the central tenet of his character. Because usually, like, plot device characters don't have a central tenet. And, like, if they do, it's usually very flimsy. Emporio's wasn't, because his central tenet was that he was a plot device. And somehow that made him not be a plot device. It was just genius writing. But yeah, Stone Ocean is so fucking good. Best writing. Shot compositions were great. Not my favorite art, but definitely my favorite character designs. Just beautiful part. When you sit, like, if it's your first read, or even if it's your second read, I say take it slow, and if you're reading it, read it with a friend. Like, not necessarily sit with a friend and read it, like, next to them, but discuss it with a friend who's also really into it or recently read it, because they will make you appreciate it more. Not to say, like, Gabe gave me a bunch of in-depth analysis on Stone Ocean as I was reading it, but as I was, like, talking about my opinions, I could yell about them to Gabe, and Gabe would give me context as to why I was feeling that way, because Gabe knows me very well, and Gabe fucking loves Stone Ocean. Yeah, Stone Ocean is my second best, but best, like, it's also my best. It's so good. And I know it has that downer ending people don't like, but, like, the thing is, it's like, the inevitability is part of its charm, you know? Because not every story is a triumphant story, and I mean, you got 5 triumphant stories before that. Maybe 4, maybe you can't count part 1 as a triumphant story, but you got 4.5 triumphant stories before that. A sad one was bound to happen, and you're gonna get happy ones later. There's no way he's letting JoJo end on a sad note. Before I go into Steel Ball Run, and I'm not going to talk about it here much, more than I already have, I'm gonna say, I don't know if I'm going to divide the Steel Ball Run videos up or not, because it's been requested that I do, like, character analysis on pretty much, like, a lot of minor characters, which is weird. I got asked to do one on Disco. But the biggest one is Gyro, and I feel like I could talk about him for 2 hours because I fucking hate the fandom interpretation of him. And I personally want to do a video on deconstructing toxic masculinity in Steel Ball Run, weird as that sounds, and the parallels between Johnny and Valentine versus, you know, Diego and Gyro. And Hot Pants. Now, anyone who knows me knows that, like, my fiance's OC, Kill OC, he transplanted her into JoJo pre-reset, and then when I joined the RP community, transplanted her into JoJo post-reset, and, like, we built a lot of, we basically filled a lot of plot holes using her, and we also rewrote the ending so that everyone lives, because I'm corny and I like everyone lives AUs. And I'm probably going to talk about that a lot on my blog. I will not bring that into the discussions here on YouTube, but for those of you who read my blog, there will be a lot of posts pertaining to her. I don't know how much analysis I'm going to do of Steel Ball Run, but, going by the fact that Stone Ocean's my second best part in this video is clocking in almost an hour, I might have a few. It might be smarter for me to do a few. I might even do scripted videos for Steel Ball Run, who knows? My opinions surrounding it a lot of them don't seem to be consensus opinions, which is kind of disappointing, but whatever. Anyways, Stone Ocean, really good read. Read it when you can, if you haven't already. Now, I'm hoping nobody who hasn't read this, but if you, even if you have read it, go back and reread it. It will be a good time. Those first few chapters are slow, but it really picks up and just becomes this fast-paced page-turner. Yeah, I will probably start rereading Steel Ball Run very soon and get through it very fast, because Steel Ball Run. Thank you for listening. listening, 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 listening.